Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, President Rodrigo Duterte slams senators anew, this time accusing them of depriving due process to resource persons, calling it worse than martial law. A formerly top official withdraws his plans of an executive session with senators, and Senate leaders hit the kangaroo court tag on the blue ribbon probe. Formerly Director Lincoln Ong's legal counsel, Attorney Ferdy Topacio, joins us live. President Rodrigo Duterte hits the Senate investigation anew over questionable pandemic deals. In a speech on Monday night, the president laments the treatment of senators to some of its resource persons. Mr. Duterte even compares the hearing with martial law, insisting that rights should be respected. Here's the president in his own words.
Akala ko ba ayaw ng mga taong Pilipinas ng martial law? Tignan mo yung ginagawa ng Senado ngayon. It is just more than a martial law. Mote pa martial law, dali ka pa doon sa korte ng military. The person accused is afforded the right to be heard.
Meantime, formerly Director Lincoln Ong declines the supposed executive session with senators. In a handwritten note, Ong tells senators that he is rejecting the offer made by Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon last Friday. Ong was cited in contempt by the Senate over his flip-flopping statements. He was supposed to be transferred to a jail but was deferred over the executive session proposal. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Lincoln Ong's legal counsel, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio. Attorney Topacio, welcome to the source. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, of course, good morning. It's always a pleasure to be interviewed by the most beautiful woman on air.
Attorney, when did you become Lincoln Ong's lawyer?
Just 2 days ago. It was a Sunday when he reached out to me and we were able to converse by phone. And then the next day, which was yesterday, I made arrangements to see him in his detention room in the Senate building. And boy, was I given a hard time. I was already there when the Sergeant at Arms, General Samonte, ordered his men to remove me from the room of Mr. Ong. But then I said, if you were going to remove me here, you'd have to bodily carry me out. Maybe they were intimidated by the fact that I was a heavy person, so they backed off.
So, were you able to see him?
Yes. Fortunately, before General Samonte arrived, I was able to converse with my client for almost 2 hours, and I was able to get a brief history of transpired before. And on that basis and conversations also with my client, I advised him to decline the offer of an executive session, telling him that it was like an unsharpened pencil. It was pointless.
So you were there, to be clear, today is Tuesday. You were there at the Senate Monday, or was it Sunday?
Yeah, yesterday. It was Sunday. I'm sure they would not have admitted me because it was a Sunday. And besides, you have to have an antigen test before being admitted to the premises. So I had to get a test, and yeah. And then I was there, and then...
I'm sorry, I have lost my connection with you. I must have pressed something. I'm going to try to get that connection back as soon as I get a call from the studio. Okay, so so far, just to summarize that, si Attorney Ferdy Topacio ay naging legal counsel ni Lincoln Ong just very recently, according to Attorney Topacio. That was 2 days ago. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm being heard. Hold on. Hello?
Hello?
Attorney Topacio, pasensya na po. There was a problem on my end, no? Meron po akong na-end na call, so hindi niyo po ako narinig. So sorry for that. So you were able to see Lincoln Ong kahapon po, at you advised kayo po nag-advise sa kanya na wag makipag-cooperate or wag makipag-cooperate dito sa executive session.
Yes, although when I arrived there, sinabi na po niya sa akin na talagang nagdadalawang isip na siya pagkatapos niyang makapagmuni-muni noong Sabado while there was no session. He was already having second thoughts about it. And he told me his concerns, and after hearing some other things, I advised him that his hunch is right. Maybe we should not participate in the executive session.
What were his concerns?
His concerns was that if he can be browbeaten and bullied in a public session where everyone was present, other senators, the media, it can be watched by the public, well, how much more can he be pressured in an executive session when the only persons present would be himself, the senators, and a few select Senate staff?
So he felt that hindi makakabuti sa kanya yung executive session. Sino ho ba, just for clarity again, ang nag-float ng idea ng executive session? Did this come from the senators or did this come from Lincoln Ong?
Well, actually, the senators say it came from him. I'm still in the process of doing the TSN. But regardless, Ma'am Pinky, the point is, the complaint of my client is that he was being pressured to say something that he did not want to say because he did not want to lie. The irony of it is that nung ayaw niyang sabihin, yung gustong sabihin ng mga senador na sabihin niya, siya pa ang sinabing nagsisinungaling. It's so ironic and it's so saddening actually.
So I want to bring up that note that your client wrote and presented this to the senators. Ang sinabi po niya, I regret to inform you that upon the advice of counsel, which is Attorney Ferdy Topacio, I'm declining your kind invitation for me to participate in the executive session regarding the matter under investigation. So nagdalawang isip po siya nung nakita mo siya, and then he told you his concerns, and you had advised him not to go push through with this executive session. But was there even a time, Attorney Topacio, that he was considering telling more and possibly even becoming or turning state witness?
That was never in the books, on the table, I mean, turning state witness. According to my client, he was being persuaded by Senator Panfilo Lacson to undergo his testimony in an executive session. But I told him, based on my experience with Senator Lacson, he's a very treacherous person because in 2008, it was also a Senate hearing on the fertilizer fund scam, so-called. Senator Lacson also convinced my client to go into executive session, Mr. Jaime Paule. And after that, when an executive session is supposed to be confidential, right after the executive session, Mr. Lacson went to his chambers and called a mini press conference and divulged everything in the executive session, including matters that were not really specifically discussed. So I told him it's very dangerous. You cannot rebut what they will say after the session, and they do not really honor the confidentiality rule in executive sessions.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Topacio. With regards to executive sessions, you're right that that should be confidential in nature. But if there is a vote, I do remember something to this effect, that if there is a vote among senators that they can release some of the information, that becomes valid. Did I get this right?
Yes,
based on memory? There you go. So
yes,
then
you
an
got it
executive
right,
session.
Yes.
Go ahead, Attorney.
But yes, you got it right. But I don't think Mr. Lacson gets it right. Because right after that executive session, he went to town with certain allegations that did not even transpire during the executive session. And you cannot rebut him because you are bound by confidentiality. So I told him it's very dangerous with the attitude of some of the senators in the Blue Ribbon Committee that they had already reached a preordained conclusion and they just want your testimony to fit in their conclusion. It's very dangerous to participate in an executive session.
So what happens to Lincoln Ong now? Because he was supposed to be transferred to the Pasay jail, but because there was this talk of an executive session supposedly this week, to which he refused or declined, what will happen to him? Will he stay within the Senate premises or will he be transferred to Pasay jail or any other jail?
Well, actually, we do not know because right after he refused to testify in executive session, probably in retribution for that action, his phones were taken away from him. And now I have no way to communicate with him. Worse, the Senate Sergeant at Arms, General Sarmiento, right after I left the Senate, went to him and started bad-mouthing, saying I cannot help him, I am this and that. And then later on, Senator Gordon started casting aspersions on my abilities as a lawyer, forgetting perhaps that my client, Jaime Laude, whom he persecuted in 2008, was acquitted by the court. So who is the lousy lawyer now, Mr. Gordon?
Where is Lincoln Ong now? Would you have any idea?
We do not know. This is ridiculous because Mr. Gordon refuses to disclose his whereabouts in violation of the constitutional provision that no person should be held incommunicado or tortured. What they are doing to my client is mental torture. And I really cannot wrap it around my head that senators of the Republic who are supposed to uphold the law and make laws is violating the fundamental law of the land. This is really, I cannot blame President Duterte for saying this is worse than martial law. This is worse than North Korea. This is worse than anything I've ever seen in my entire life, actually.
Attorney, but you have every right to see your client. Is that not true? So have you tried to go to the Senate today to find out the whereabouts of your client?
I have sent yesterday a letter to Senator Gordon formally informing him that we have been retained as counsel for Mr. Ong and requesting for access to my client. Actually, we are preparing something right now, but definitely this afternoon, we will try to gain access to my client, provided they will tell us where he is, and we will not be given a hard time in accessing him. Remember, the Senate Sergeant at Arms tried to stop me from seeing my client and even bad-mouthed me in front of my client. Imagine that kind of attitude.
But would it be possible that the Sergeant at Arms did that because they were not aware that you were the counsel of Mr. Lincoln Ong? Kasi kakapasok niyo lang ho eh.
Oh, no, immediately I gave them a letter, a handwritten letter also of Mr. Ong. I furnished a copy to Director Kimbo of the Blue Ribbon Committee Secretariat. That I was appearing there as counsel. So, General Samonte cannot really feign ignorance of the fact that I was counsel. And the fact that Mr. O was talking to me and he verbally confirmed to the guards on duty that I was his lawyer should have already put him on notice. I mean, come on, I was not born yesterday. I know harassment when I see one.
Okay, we need to take a very short break. The source will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Lincoln Ong's legal counsel, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio. So, Attorney Topacio, what happened yesterday was that there were a number of things you said that actually irked the senators. One is you said that they have been abusing their contempt powers, even going as far as saying it's a kangaroo court and that even a criminal case can be filed against the senators. First of all, on what ground would you be able to file a criminal case against the senators on behalf of your client?
Well, if they are attempting to do something to my client in violation either of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act or the Revised Penal Code or some other law with respect to civil and political rights, cases can be filed. They are, after all, public officials. And actually, Ma'am Pinky, it amuses me no end when I saw the pic in our senators because I did not know that there was such a law as lèse majesté in this jurisdiction wherein you cannot criticize an institution. Mr. Gordon has threatened to cite me in contempt for calling the Senate a kangaroo court. Where is it written unless I woke up in Thailand this morning that you cannot criticize an institution or a public official. Last time I looked, that right was right there in the Constitution. So this is getting really ridiculous, and that only goes to show that they are a kangaroo court. And I will repeat this again. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, under the leadership of Senator Richard Gordon, is turning into a kangaroo court. It is a kangaroo court. Now, please, Mr. Gordon, if you have legal basis to cite me in contempt, please do so now. Your Blue Ribbon Committee is a kangaroo court.
Attorney Topacio, I was looking into the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation. And here it says that Section 15, the conduct of a counsel. Counsel for a witness shall conduct himself in a professional, ethical, and proper manner. His failure to do so shall subject counsel, so here it is, to disciplinary action, which may indicate a warning, censure, removal from the hearing room, or punishment for contempt. Could this be used against you for, number one, for calling it the Blue Ribbon Committee a kangaroo court, and number two, for belittling this Senate investigation? This Section 15, conduct of a counsel, could you be guilty of this?
No, because that pertains to conduct of a counsel during a hearing in the presence of any committee or even the Blue Ribbon Committee. I made these pronouncements outside of the Senate. The Senate has no jurisdiction over me, and I made this pronouncement not only as counsel of Mr. Lincoln Ong, but also as a citizen who has freedom of expression to criticize public officials. That freedom and that right is enshrined in the Constitution. That's why I'm daring, Mr. Gordon, do that as a basis, so you will be exposed for the fraud that you are.
But what case can you file against the senators on behalf of your client? Ano po specific na kaso?
I will not divulge it right now. I will hold my cards close to my chest. I'm waiting for them to make some moves. And when they make those moves, then we will file the case. But definitely a case before the Supreme Court is in the works. I'm sure they are expecting that. And that is what we are working on, to secure the liberty of a person who is being unjustly detained under the contempt powers of the Senate without due process.
So unjustly detained, again, the words you used. Looking back into this legislative inquiry on Section 18, there is that specific section on contempt, which says the committee, by a vote of a majority of its members, may punish for contempt any witness before it who disobeys any order of the committee. Number two, refuses to be sworn or to testify, or it says to answer a proper question by the committee or any of its members, or testifies falsely, or nandun din po yung salitang evasively, to which the senators have often repeated that your client allegedly has been very evasive with the questions of the senators. So if we look at this Section 18 on contempt, it seems, of course, without me being a lawyer, that there is that contempt part, obviously, from the Senate that can be issued to your client. How can you defend your client there?
Very simple. Actually, and I'm sure these lawyers, these top-notch lawyers like Drilon and Gordon, well, Kiko Pangilinan is not a top-notch lawyer, so he's forgiven for not knowing this. But, there is a condition in the Constitution that says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process law. All laws, including Senate rules, must conform to that. Okay, there is no question that the Senate has to punish. I concede, but then you have to see how the power is used, and that's when the due process comes into play. In the United States, Ma'am Pinky, when the U.S. Senate wants to cite a person, a resource person in contempt, they do not act as the accuser, prosecutor, and executioner, all at the same time. What they do is they make a formal charge sheet. They file it before a federal court. A person who is accused of contempt is charged. The Attorney General prosecutes him. He is entitled to counsel to himself and show that he is not contempt of the Senate. That is how it should be done. Here, by the mere expedient of a senator saying, "Oh, you are evasive, you are lying, oh, kulong ka." That is unconstitutional, and we intend to challenge that before the court because how are you determining that he's lying or he's evasive? That is not for a committee of the Senate to decide. That is for us to decide. That is a fact, and that is a question of law.
Attorney Topacio, we have to fix our audio. You're coming on and off, but while we do that, we're going to take another short break. The source will be right back. So we have Attorney Ferdy Topacio now on the phone, as our internet was not very good a while ago. So we have him on air, but we're also going to speak to him over the phone. So I want to ask you this because basically, in essence, you're hitting senators one after the other. You're obviously hitting the Blue Ribbon Committee over the conduct of the inquiry on this. You do submit, though, Attorney, of course, that the power of contempt is well within the rights of the senators?
Yes, the power of contempt is well within the right of any legislative body. That much is conceded. However, our contention here is that the manner by which the contempt powers are being exercised by this particular committee is unconstitutional because the Constitution says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. What is due process? It is a hearing. In the U.S. Senate, where the concept of the power of contempt was borrowed by the Philippine Constitution, if the United States Senate wants to cite any person appearing before it in contempt, it prepares a formal charge filed before the Federal Court of Washington and prosecuted by the Attorney General of the United States.
And but that never happened here, diba? That never happened here, sir.
I'm sorry?
That never happened here. We've seen many instances where resource persons have been cited in contempt and even transferred to jails.
Yes, in this jurisdiction, the committee is the accuser, the prosecutor, the judge, and the executioner, all rolled into one. Therein lies the violation of the right to due process. That is our contention. At alam po niyan, I'm sure alam niya ni Senator Gordon, top-notch lawyer yan. Si Senator Dillon, top-notch lawyer yan. Si Kiko Pangilinan, ewan ko, hindi naman siya top-notch lawyer, baka hindi niya alam. But then, it's unforgivable for them not to advise each other of these rights.
But why, Attorney Topacio, why go on non-stop criticizing the senators? To what end?
Well, it is my right as the lawyer of Mr. Ong and as a citizen to criticize the way by which institutions perform their functions. Nagulat nga ako, that's why I say it amuses me no end, that napikon. I don't know what got their goat. Maybe the truth hurts. And then they started this barrage against me. This Gordon is a piece of work. He even goes below the belt, involving some people close to me. So I have to defend myself. You know, these people probably have been so used to bullying people who cannot fight back. And now I think they have met their match. I will not take it sitting down that they're bullying my client, and now they are bullying me. No way. You people have a fight in your hands.
Yun ang sabi po nga ni Senate President Tito Sotto, do not call the committee any names, and to the effect that we're not just going to roll over and we will continue to find out the truth. So very clearly, you're not backing down. And you have continued to call this Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Court a kangaroo court. Hindi nyo nga po binabawi ito.
Hindi po. Inuulit ko nga where is it written anywhere, as Senate President Soto, that I cannot criticize the Senate? Meron bang batas na less majeste dito sa ating bansa, parang Thailand, that you cannot criticize the king? Anong klaseng pananaw yan? Yung nga sinasabi ko, and this person wants to be vice president. Anak ng pating namang mga tao kayo.
Okay, Attorney.
So if you want to not back down, if they continue, let's fight. But huwag niyo sasabihin, I cannot call you names. This is a Republican and democratic country. Ano ba naman kayo? Where is this coming from?
Okay.
I really don't know.
Unfortunately, Attorney Topacio, wala na po tayong oras. So again, you said that you will try to see your client today because according to you, incommunicado na po siya simula, after you saw him yesterday. So we'll continue to get more updates on this. In the meantime, Attorney Ferdy Topacio, the legal counsel of formerly Director Lincoln Ong. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
It's always a pleasure, Ma'am Pinky. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.